Oh come on, who wouldn't be nice to you, when you were so nice to everyone and worked so hard? You were my favorite back then and I'm still sad that you resigned. Namjoon pulled Jungkook again and wrapped his arm around his shoulder before ruffling his hair. Jungkook just giggled at the action. Namjoon's huge grin, which Taehyung hated, was now making his face red in anger. Or was it jealousy? Oh, he wouldn't, never, admit that to anyone, not even to himself. He wanted to snatch his husband back to him and have his full attention, to himself again, but Namjoon was in his way. He was way too fine when they were just sitting on the couch, in front of the TV and unconsciously cuddling each other earlier, but his cousin just had to ruin his day and annoy him. God, I've never been this annoyed with him. What are you doing here though? How do you know Taehyung? Jungkook asked, now curious about the sudden visit. He's my cousin, Namjoon replied, shocking Jungkook with the news. Wow, one of his favorite people was related to his man. Wait, was Taehyung his man though? Well, his current man. Whatever, I mean. That's just amazing. I just visited to congratulate the both of you on your wedding. I wasn't in the country when I learned about the sudden news, but I made sure to come to visit you both to personally greet you as soon as I got back, Namjoon explained, walking closer to Taehyung and enveloping him in a brotherly hug before patting his shoulder with a sincere smile on his face. I must say, I didn't expect the both of you to end up together. I truly didn't see it coming, but I'm happy for both of you. You both deserve to be happy. It was awkward for Jungkook after the man said that. After all, were they genuinely happy to be wedded? He knew he was happy to at least call Taehyung his husband, even if it would eventually come to an end, but still, he was glad. But was Taehyung happy though? Being with him? Thinking about it now actually kind of felt different for Taehyung. He didn't feel bad about the topic anymore. In all honesty, he wanted to make his cousin realize more that the man he just hugged a while ago was now married to him. In fact, he was a little glad that the reason for Namjoon's visit was to congratulate them, and not some crap, because otherwise, he knew he wouldn't act nice. And of course, since it was the wedding of two of the most precious people to me, I wouldn't forget about your wedding gifts. And I don't accept as an answer. He took something out of his pocket and gave it to Jungkook, who quickly scanned the paper in his hands. As soon as he realized what it was, his eyes grew wide and his mouth hung open. He looked at Namjoon's grinning face before turning his attention to Taehyung, who has a curious expression on his face. We might need to pack a few clothes for this. Let's say that Taehyung wasn't really surprised when he found out that the gift was 2 3-day and 2-night vacation tickets to the Maldives. As a man who grew up in a wealthy family, he was used to receiving gifts this grand, and he was so ready to reject his humble cousin. But then he saw Jungkook's reaction. He saw stars in his eyes, sparkling bright that they could captivate anyone who looked at them and make them speechless. Anyone. If I remember correctly, I think you once told me that you'd be going to the Maldives one day, Namjoon said, smiling sweetly at Jungkook, who smiled widely back at him. He vigorously nodded his head, and in a blink of an eye, Jungkook was already hugging Namjoon tightly that the latter almost couldn't catch his breath. As if Namjoon expected it to happen, he chuckled when Taehyung pulled his husband to himself again. His forehead was creased and he was frowning so deeply that Jungkook felt a little uncomfortable around him. Sorry, I just got so excited, he said, chuckling nervously as he felt Taehyung's grip on his arm loosen a bit but didn't let go. Thank you for the gift. If he likes it that much, then we'll accept it, Taehyung said, his cold voice reflecting his expression. Namjoon smiled at him, nodding before finally saying goodbye. Good then. If that is so, then I will take my leave now. I'm glad to see the both of you again, he said before patting Taehyung's shoulder and hugging Jungkook again. At least eat dinner here, Jungkook insisted, but the guy rejected it, saying he should be elsewhere at this time. Waving his hand at them, he took his leave. Namjoon was a smart guy. He wasn't dumb. He knew everything about the marriage, about it being forced, but watching the newlyweds' behaviors, it showed. They were slowly getting into it. The minute Namjoon walked out of the house was only when Taehyung let go of Jungkook's arm. The younger looked at him curiously but bowed his head down again when he saw Taehyung's glare at him. Don't hug other men in front of me, he said as he turned around and walked upstairs to his room. Jungkook didn't want to expect, but was he jealous? I mean, he did everything that a jealous guy would, so was he? But that's Taehyung. Maybe that was a normal thing for him. Maybe he just didn't want his husband to get touchy and clingy with another man, because it would not look good for him. It was his image we were talking about anyway. So he didn't get his hopes high. Suddenly, Taehyung was back in front of him. Jungkook looked into his eyes when he felt his presence and almost jumped back that he was indeed there. Was he daydreaming that he didn't notice him come back? What are you doing still standing there? Aren't you gonna pack? Oh God, he was so embarrassed. I will. He headed straight to his room, closing it and leaning against it while covering his flushed face with his hands. Before he knew it, he was already squealing like a high school girl who finally got noticed by her crush. I'm going to the Maldives with Taehyung, he screamed but immediately covered his mouth to prevent more noise. He didn't want Taehyung to hear him, but he was just so excited. Taehyung did hear him. He let out a small chuckle while shaking his head, taking out his phone from his pocket before dialing his secretary's number. Cancel my schedule for the next 3 days, he said, not caring about greetings which his secretary was already used to. But sir, you have an important meeting with Mr. Amma. I don't care. This is important as well. Move the meeting after my leave, and explain it carefully to him. This was his chance to finally know his husband better and introduce himself, his real self, to him, so any meetings could wait. He looked at the time and saw that it was already 6:20 p.m. but they still haven't eaten their dinner. He walked towards his husband's room and knocked. It opened immediately after the third knock. It's dinner time, let's eat, he invited. Jungkook smiled at him and nodded, walking with him downstairs where their food was already waiting. Morning came and their luggage was all ready. Jungkook was looking for Taehyung but he was nowhere to be found, so he waited. Maybe he was doing something important at his company before leaving it for good for 3 days. When he came back, he was holding a paper. The younger looked at it in curiosity but didn't ask. He didn't want to come out nosy. Taehyung explained it to him though, saying that he went to his doctor early in the morning to ask for her permission about flying, and the doctor said that there wasn't any danger in it, so she permitted him. The paper was a letter of permission. For now, Taehyung asked his driver to drive them to the airport and take care of their luggage. He didn't want his husband to carry those when he was already carrying something else, or someone. The flight was fine for Taehyung. He was used to riding planes for business travels and other purposes, but Jungkook wasn't. It was his first time on a plane and he looked so excited. He wanted to have the seat by the window, but his shoulders slumped down in dismay when he saw that Taehyung already took it. Can I please sit there instead? He asked after gathering all the courage he had. Taehyung was already settled though. His seatbelt was on and he was now sitting comfortably. He didn't reply but instead, he looked at the seat beside him. What's the difference between your seat and my seat? He asked, just curious but coming out with a jerk tone again. Just sit there.